welcome to this regular meeting of the Temple City Council for Thursday, August 18th, 2016. Please rise as Dr. Sanjanette Crosley leads us in the invocation, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Jonathan Graham, our City Manager.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for life, for being able to participate in the life experience. We thank you for the change in the weather, for the temperature, the cool front that we have. We thank you for the rain that has made a difference in our city and our lawns to help us with expenditures that we need to be improved as a result of this water that's present. We just thank you for the opportunity to serve our city government today and our city and citizens to make a difference. We ask you to bless the council members. We thank you for the spirit of volunteerism. We ask you to lead, guide, and direct them in all the decisions they make on today and on a monthly basis. We ask you to bless our men and women in blue, that you continue to put your guardian angel around them and protect them as they try to protect us. We ask you to bless our Temple Fire and Rescue as they protect us. And we ask you to bless all of those that are employees of the City of Temple, those that govern our city and those that maintain it, so that we can enjoy the life that we have here. We thank you for the City of Temple and being a great place to live, the state of Texas and these United States. We just thank you for the opportunity to just be thankful. Now bless the endeavor on today. Continue to make us mindful of who you are and the blessings that we enjoy on a daily basis. These are many blessings we ask in your precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both. Next item on the agenda is the opportunity for public comments. Any citizen who desires to address the council on any matter may do so by signing up prior to this meeting. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. No discussion or final action will be taken by the City Council. First up, Mr. William Broughton.
My name is Bill Broughton, B-R-O-U-G-H-T-O-N. I live at 2426 Marlinwood Road. I've lived there since 1966. So if you're at 31st and Marlinwood, if you drive down, the Marlinwood will wind around a little bit and then it comes to a creek. And right at this creek bottom is my property, just on the upstream side of this property. And this creek is something I've been watching for 50 years, since I was a child. And so its watershed, if you think about it, is, say, from Church's Fried Chicken to Hobby Lobby. So all water is going to drain through this creek. And so this bridge, I believe, was built in the 1950s, at least before 1956. And so my concern is this bridge that was built in the 50s going to be capable of holding the water for 2020? So I've seen more and more that the water starts going over this bridge. I think we lived 20, 30 years without ever seeing it go over this bridge. And now just last month, it was a 3.5-inch rain and went over the bridge. And so there's a couple of issues I have. First is safety. Of course, it's a dark curve, and someone at night with this water raging over that bridge, there could definitely be some safety issues there. But when the bridge starts restricting the flow of this creek, the water starts churning and it starts eroding my property. And so I've lost a lot of property over the last decade, for sure. And so my concern, my request for council is, if you're in South Temple, please drive by this creek bottom and look at this bridge. It's been damaged before and it's still damaged. And so I would request y'all just to take a look at it and see if y'all have any suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Joe Ramirez.
My name is Joe Ramirez, and I live at 1102 North 6th Street here in Temple.
and I've been here a short time, but in a short time, I've seen a lot of crime increase. As the city grows, so does crime. But I'm really concerned about the neighborhood where I live. There's neighborhood watch signs that are absolutely doing nothing because they are so faded away. I don't understand why they can't be updated. There's some neighborhood signs that say neighborhood watch, but they're about this big. So when you're driving by, I mean, you can't see it. Some of the bigger ones, they got graffiti on them. They're so worn out. They must be about 100 years old. You know, I'm really concerned though because we got these younger kids that walk by our neighborhood that don't belong in the neighborhood. They don't see the signs. They really don't give a crap. It really ticks me off. It's gotten to the point that we do have a good neighborhood watch, but as long as these people don't see what's going on, you know, they're just going to come in there. I understand clearly that the police can't be there at all the times because of budget situations, but maybe the budget should be increased. Hire more policemen or something. But believe me, it's going to be a rude awakening. I've lived in big cities where crime is a big business and people like to come to small cities. And please be aware of it. So my main concern is I don't know how to do it or who I have to get in contact, or if I have to buy a sign myself, let me know. But I'm really concerned about neighborhood watch that we're really trying to get involved, but people, you know, they don't belong in the neighborhood, come by, like, hey, in fact, even stop signs. Over here on Main and King, I'm walking my dog and the car just goes by the stop sign like, you know, the stop sign is just a novelty. So that's my 2 cents worth. So, but I will leave this information. Please read it before you recycle it.
No problem. Mr. Graham, do you think we could look for some
Yes.
neighborhood watch signs, and we'll look through the area? You bet. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a budget item. It's public hearing. Conduct a final public hearing and consider a resolution approving the Community Development Block Grant 2016-17 Annual Action Plan and Budget, 2015 through 19 Citizen Participation Plan, the 2015 through 19 Fair Housing Plan, including the funding recommendations. Ashley Williams.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to present this. I received this presentation a couple months ago when we opened up our citizen comment period, and this is now to adopt the plans that will be submitted to the Housing and Urban Development in regards to our use of Community Development Block Grant funds. The primary purpose of this program is to develop viable communities through the provision of decent housing, suitable living and environments, and expanding economic opportunities to those that are principally very low, and moderate income persons. Oops. We receive these funds annually, and as recipients of these funds, we are required to complete a consolidated plan every 5 years, which was approved last year. And then every subsequent year within that consolidated plan, we are required to create an annual action plan. Within the consolidated plan, we prioritize these 5 goals that focus on owner-occupied housing rehabilitation and construction, improving community accessibility through sidewalk transportation enhancements, expanding the support for social services to address needs of low and moderate income children, youth, elderly, and disabled, to address the removal of barriers to education, job training, and Section 3 compliance, as well as affirmatively furthering fair housing and reducing barriers to affordable housing. These were all determined based on a needs assessment that was sent out as a survey to all citizens of the community. and I believe received just over about 150 or so back, and these were identified as the priorities. So with this, we have to focus on the areas that are 51% below, that are greater than, low to moderate income areas, and those are highlighted in pink on the map. And these are the qualified areas where we are able to spend funding, or focus our funding. The annual action plan outlines the steps, what we're going to implement to support the goals within the consolidated plan. This year, we will be receiving $410,971 from HUD, and we will be rolling over some funding that we have remaining from future years, or from past years, that are just about $15,000, and so we will have a total of just over $425,000 to focus on community development block grant funds. So you might ask, there's been an increase this year. Historically, last year we received $350,000. There's been an increase. This is based off of a formula that that HUD uses. They take census information, and they're able to figure out what we receive based off of poverty level, population growth lag, housing overcrowding, and the age of housing. And so through the census, it has been identified that we are receiving more funds. As you can tell with this graph, we historically have received about 8% decrease each year, and we assume that we will continue to receive that decrease, that this increase this year has just kind of put us at the level we were supposed to be at, and then we will most likely see a decrease in the future. So as you can tell, that generally the funding across the state increased slightly, but it's remained relatively stable, as well as the minimum allocations, the maximum allocations. The minimum goes to smaller cities that are just over 50,000 population, and the maximum goes to cities like Houston and whatnot. And then the average is 2.7 million. So we're one of we receive a limited amount of funding compared to some other people. The action plan development, through this process, we had to go through a community input process, and we held public hearings and meetings. The first one was June 16th at the City Council meeting, where we opened up the public comment period, and we held a meeting at the Historic Post Office on June 29th, and then today we were asking for adoption of the plan. We received one comment, and it stressed the need for improving housing stock, and at the bottom there is the quote from the comment form, and it says, "Whatever the city can do in resolving the housing need will be important. I think we need to be careful and examine how our community can sustain such strong growth and yet still have so many residents that require help meeting their basic needs. Low-wage jobs and high housing costs burden low-income families and set them up to fail." So if you recall the priorities that we focused on in the consolidated plan, that kind of summarizes the intentions of the programs we have proposed. So with the $425,000, we intend to award $57,500 to public service agencies, focus on $100,000 towards infrastructure, $118,000 to housing improvements, and $70,000 to demo, and then have $80,000 as general administration. So with the public service agencies, we will be awarding 4 public service agencies: Central Texas 4C, Families in Crisis, Hill Country Community Action, and NeighborWorks. The majority of these focus on caseworkers, and then Hill Country focuses on Meals on Wheels. And it will be $57,500. For the infrastructure, this year we're finalizing some housing or some bus stop improvements, and we hope to continue that through next year, as well as focus on some lighting opportunities to improve lighting in certain areas of town to increase safety. The housing program is currently being implemented. We will be continuing that program next year and focusing on emergency repairs, pre-weatherization, accessibility, and maintenance education classes, as well as financial literacy and credit repair classes. Through this program, we are partnering with other nonprofits to promote and to implement the project, and to focus. We'll partner mainly with them to do the education classes and the financial literacy classes, and then we will be rolling out the repair program. The demolition will continue. We focus on vacant and dilapidated structures to address blight, and so those are some of the, historically, some of the buildings we have demolished. And then general administration, we will be using 20% of the total allocation, which is what is allowed under the CDBG program, and we'll be using $80,000 towards that. Second, the citizen participation plan needs to be adopted. Back in March, we developed this should be adopted with the consolidated plan every 5 years. However, the citizen participation plan and the fair housing plan are being presented to you now because in March we received a ruling from HUD that gave some guidance on the Fair Housing Act, and so we were advised by HUD to wait to include these plans in this year as opposed to when we did our consolidated plan last year because of the findings that they were going to present to us, so we could make sure that they were correct. And so the citizen participation plan outlines how and when the city will request formal and informal participation through the CDBG program. And so this was last updated in October of 2014. We tried to clarify some of the language and make the steps more streamlined, and now we're just including those fair housing rules. So in general, it must provide and encourage residents, particularly low to moderate income residents, those living in low to moderate income neighborhoods or blighted neighborhoods, racial, ethnic minorities, and disabled to participate in the development of the plans and evaluation of reports. So the goal is to encourage citizen participation by all, inform citizens of plans, including availability of funds for eligible activities, give all citizens an opportunity to identify and respond to priority needs, give all citizens an opportunity to identify and respond to priorities, proposed projects, and the use of funds, as well as give all citizens the opportunity to review and comment on a program performance. And so this is done with our our public comment period we just ended in July, and then when we do our reporting, the public also has time to review and comment on that. The plan defines the following, just to point out a few things. It defines the process. It also certifies that the city affirmatively furthers fair housing and how we are going to do that and involve the public. It encourages community awareness and participation and offers public workshops to educate the public. It includes training and coaching of subrecipients to make sure that they are aware of what is required under the CDBG program. And it allows us to amend the consolidated and annual action plan and describes how that is done, among the other things that are listed. So moving on to the Fair Housing Plan, which, as I described, was also held to this year and not done last year, given the ruling we were waiting on from the Supreme Court. It prohibits, generally the Fair Housing Act prohibits housing discrimination based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, disability, and familial status concerning the sale, rental, and financing of housing. And so the recent ruling from Supreme Court has changed how our Fair Housing Plan is set up. As a CDBG entitlement jurisdiction, we are required to do this and certify that we are, as a city, affirmatively furthering fair housing. And we are required to examine and attempt to alleviate housing discrimination, promote fair housing choice for all persons, provide opportunities for all persons in neighborhoods to receive the same level of services and amenities throughout the jurisdiction, promote housing that is accessible to persons with disabilities, and comply with all federal law and requirements regarding fair housing and non-discrimination. So the document includes the following: how the community is involved in the development of the plan, which we had some workshops and included nonprofits and some residents that work together to develop this. It takes an assessment of past goals and actions, and then it provides a current assessment of our fair housing, looking at census data and other information that we gather through our needs assessment survey and other surveys we do specific to fair housing. And then it also establishes our priorities, goals, and action steps related to fair housing. In general, the following impediments were identified through the fair housing plan, and these impediments are what we look to improve or where we can as a city. So a demographic impediment is that there are areas of segregation and minority of low income concentration throughout Temple. Some housing impediments include shortage of rental housing in general and affordable sound rental housing in areas of opportunity. There's a shortage of affordable owner-occupied housing in specific areas, and there's the possibility of predatory lending for homes in new subdivisions and denial of loans to minorities or moderate income persons. Continuing on to the access to opportunity. The impediments related to that are that the quality of infrastructure and facilities are limited in some areas of the city. Aging neighborhoods in Temple have numerous code violations and abandoned properties that are hindering the health and safety of the residents and preventing the areas from being desirable. So these are all things that I believe as a city we're focusing on. Access to opportunity continued. There is a shortage of grocery stores and other types of stores in certain parts of the city that have low income and minority concentration, and as well as that there are many schools in the area of high minority and low income concentrations that have lower standardized test scores. So, for example, that one, the city doesn't have much control, but it's something that we need to be aware of. Legislative and regulatory impediments include tax issues that add to the lowering of the cost of housing in Temple. There's fair housing rights are not generally known in Temple, and that while the most stringent enforcement of fair housing legislation rests with the Housing and Urban Development and the U.S. Department of Justice, local jurisdictions have a role in compliance and enforcement, as well as in reporting steps taken to affirmatively further fair housing. So in general, those impediments are being addressed through our consolidated plan and the projects we implement through community development as well as other programs within the city. And the plan adoption, we are seeking adoption tonight by council, and it will begin October 1st, the plan year. And this is just a summary of the breakdown of the budget of how we will use the funding that we will be provided this year. And there is a copy of all these plans on the website as well as at the Historic Post Office and the library. Any questions?
I have a question. Are any of your committee members in the audience today?
No.
Okay. Council, any questions? Thank you for all your work on that. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. If there being no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on item 3.
Motion to approve item 3.
Second.
Motion a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. And again, Ashley, thanks for all your work on that. Item 4, a public hearing. Conduct the second of 2 public hearings to receive comments on the proposed tax rate of 65.72 cents per $100 valuation for fiscal year 2017, the 2016 tax year, and announce meeting to adopt the proposed tax rate on August 26, 2016. Bernard?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Next slide, please. As Jonathan had he went over this budget calendar in the work session, tonight we're at the second public hearing on the tax rate, And next Friday morning, special meeting at 8:30 is scheduled for the adoption of the budget and setting of the tax rate. The proposed tax rate includes two components, the general maintenance and operations component and the debt retirement or interest in sinking component. The total proposed rate is 65.72 cents. The M&O is 31.42. The INS 34.30, and that is a total increase of 2.74 cents. What is the impact on the average on a $100,000 taxable valuation? That $2.74 cents would equate to no increase on a homeowner who has the 65 and over homestead exemption or senior citizens exemption, and it would be about $2.28 a month for the $100,000 home, or $27.40 a year. And that would conclude the presentation on the tax rate. I don't know if Mr. Graham has any comments about the budget in general.
Just, again, appreciate the hard work that went into it and remind the council that much of the increase is due to the TCIP program that we've been, engaged in for the last 4 years, and appreciate your support.
Hey, Mr. Graham, Ms. Bernard, and all of your work, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. Council, any questions? Scheduled for the second public hearing. This time I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. All right. There being no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And we have no action tonight, but the meeting to adopt the proposed tax rate is set for a special called meeting on Friday, August 26, 2016 at 8:30 a.m. here in the council chambers. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed under this section are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by any member if discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed at the request of any council member and will be considered separately. This is through items 5A through 5H. Anything anybody wants to pull from the consent agenda? All right. We'll entertain a motion on item 5.
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Item 6, a first reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the annexation of a 2.149-acre part or portion of existing right-of-way of Dubose Road situated in the William Fraser Survey, abstract number 310, Bell County, Texas, and located adjacent to the Valley Ranch subdivision. Mr. Chandler.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And just to orient you to the road that is up for annexation, this is Dubose Road, shown here in yellow. This is FM 93, and it is between two different phases of the Valley Ranch subdivision. And so the county has requested that we annex this, and just wanted to let you all know that this would not happen in the future. We've had recent state legislation that would prevent annexation of abutting land to a county road without the city annexing. So if the property owner to the south along Dubose Road were to request annexation, then we would annex Dubose Road as well in the future. And just a quick reminder about the schedule for the annexation. A petition was received on May 2nd. The city attorney brought the petition to you all on June 2nd. We've had 2 public hearings in July to review the municipal service plan on July 21st and 22nd. And then, of course, this is the first reading for adoption of the ordinance, and second reading will be on September 1st. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chandler, any questions? This item is scheduled for a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. There being no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of item 6.
Motion for approval, item 6.
Second.
A motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Item 7, a first reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Garbage, Refuse, and Recycling.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I know you wanted a meeting without talking about Chapter 15, but we're going to talk about it one more time. And these are proposed amendments specifically to Section 15-10 of that chapter, which I know you have all memorized word for word now. But it's basically our section that says that the city is the sole provider of solid waste services. In red is that language that says it's unlawful for any person other than our solid waste division to collect garbage in the city without first having obtained a contract with the city to do so. And then I also highlighted in purple the sentence that applies to professional or commercial tree trimmers, and because the proposed changes kind of mirror that language. And it basically says that an exception to the general rule is that professional commercial tree trimmers are allowed to engage in the private collection of brush and shrubs and leaves, et cetera, as long as they haul them to the landfill or other site designated by our solid waste director. So the proposed amendments are, again, primarily to 15-10, and we're proposing to break it out into subsections to make it just a little easier to read. That subsection A is the same language that says that we are the sole provider of solid waste services. In B, the only change to that language is that I wanted to clarify that if the city does allow another entity to do waste hauling services, it would be through a franchise agreement. The current language says contract, and we have historically done that through a franchise agreement. So just a little bit of clarity on that one. C is the same language that applies to tree trimmers. So the substantive change is the addition of subsection D, which very much mirrors the language on tree trimmers, and it says that the private collection and hauling of construction waste is allowed, notwithstanding the provisions of this section. So we're exempting out that type of waste hauling from the general rule. And it did include a definition of construction waste, which we've talked about before, but that's construction or demo debris, et cetera, generated by residential construction activities. And entities engaged in the hauling of construction waste pursuant to this subsection must register their businesses with Director of Solid Waste Services. And I want to clarify that a little bit. That registration is required of tree trimmers. So this language again mirrors what would be in subsection C. And it's a very simple process that Solid Waste has set up. It's a 2-page registration form. It just asks for contact information. In this instance, they would probably ask for the type of equipment being used, and then the solid waste department issues just a paper kind of permit, for lack of a better word. There's no fees associated with it. The solid waste department does all of the tracking on it for tree trimmers currently, and so it would just be kind of mirroring, using that same process for construction waste. They would have to haul it to the landfill or other site designated by the Solid Waste Division. And then one there is making that caveat that we've talked about before, that construction waste hauling that we're accepting out from the general rule only applies if the business is providing those hauling services in addition to site cleanup. And that could be, demolition or cleaning up of construction and demolition waste, but also the landscaping and grading and tractor services that we've talked about before. So a little bit more complicated, obviously, than tree trimmers, but we're trying to make what is really a very narrow exception to the general rule that the city is the sole provider of waste hauling services. So, in summary, the effect of the amendments would be that businesses engaged in the hauling of residential construction waste in combination with those site cleanup and landscaping activities may haul construction waste in the city without a franchise agreement. They would be required to do the simple registration with the Solid Waste Division, just as professional tree trimmers are required to do. And as I stated before, it is a simple registration form. Although Jonathan and I talked about the proposed amendments before putting them on the agenda, if the desire is to not require these businesses to do the registration, that's possible as well. We were just treating them the same as we do professional tree trimmers at this time. But I don't know that there's strong feelings one way or the other about doing so. So that is all I have. Happy to answer questions.
Questions? Registration would be a one-time thing and not an annual?
I think they do ask for annual updates. But again, it's not anything, there's not a penalty associated with it. It's just a way for solid waste to track who's providing those services. Because they are, again, it is, for tree trimmers now, it is one exception to the rule. So it's a way for solid waste to track that. And so there's no penalty associated with it. If they don't, we're just kindly requesting that they do. Well, I guess there could potentially be penalties associated with it, but it's a annual update of contact information and things like that. On this registration form, the way that Lisa's office has drafted it currently, it also does ask for the company to confirm that they provide those additional services like the landscaping and grading and things like that. So just making it clear that it's really those specific types of entities that are subject to the exception. And if you're only providing waste hauling services, then that's a different thing. That makes sense.
I assume they could use this one incentive for somebody to register when they go to the dump. They wouldn't be able to get in-city fees or the cheaper rate if they weren't registered. They have that information at the storehouse.
We don't really, I know for tree trimmers, I don't think we really use the information for that purpose. I mean, we rely on whoever is bringing the waste to say whether it was generated in city or out of city. So that would continue. But Nicole is here, and she might be able to speak more intelligently about the process.
My thoughts are that may stop some people from lying about it.
Okay, yeah, that could be. Maybe.
No, what Kayla said is accurate. There's really no cross-check or anything between our office and the landfill related to tree trimmers at this time, and we wouldn't expect that to happen for the waste hauling folks either. So, totally independent process.
Is there going to be any sort of decal or anything like that required, or?
No, I think what they do for tree trimmers now is just a paper. It's called a permit for lack of a better word.
They need to show it whenever they enter, or
They're supposed to have the piece of paper. Right now, I mean, people come in and out and dispose of their brush, and then we sometimes check, sometimes we don't. It's really self-regulated, self-monitored, because we don't have staff who stands at the gate and checks anything, really. It's all by honesty.
Questions? Thank you, Nicole. All right. This time I'll open the public hearing on item 7. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. All right. There being no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of item 7.
Motion for approval, item 7 as read.
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington,
Aye.
Councilmember Morales,
Aye.
Mayor Dunn.
Aye. Can we not do that for a while?
I'm going to celebrate later.
Be on consent next time.
It will be on consent.
Item 8, consider adopting a resolution approving the final plat of Kegley Crossing Addition, a 6.97 acre, 6-lot, 2-block, non-residential subdivision with a requested exception to Unified Development Code, Section 8.5.2, internal streets, to exempt the property owner from right-of-way dedication for extension of a future minor arterial across Block 1, Lots 2 through 5, situated in the Nancy Chance Survey, abstract number 5, situated in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, located between Kegley Lane and South Kegley Road, north of Charter Oak Drive. Ms. Firely.
Good evening, Mayor and council members, and I have an aerial on the screen showing where that property is located. It is this orange area, and it is separated by Kegley Road. It's actually between Kegley Lane and then Kegley Road in this area, and then the railroad borders the east boundary. And also, since the applicant is asking for an exception to dedicating right-of-way for proposed minor arterial, I have that shown on the aerial as well. It's the green dashed area, and I will explain a little bit more about that in the next slides. Just a little background. As you mentioned, this is a 2-block non-residential subdivision. The DRC reviewed the plat on March the 7th of 2016 and then July the 7th, 2016, and it was deemed administratively complete on July the 13th of 2016. And as you mentioned, the applicant is asking for an exception to Unified Development Code Section 8.5.2 for internal streets to exempt the property from right-of-way dedication that is proposed for Poison Oaks future minor arterial extension across the proposed Block 1, lots 2 through 5. And the proposed Poison Oak extension, minor arterial extension, is shown on the City of Temple's thoroughfare plan. And staff is in support of the applicant's requested exception because it appears that the location of the proposed extension of the future minor arterial extension may change alignment, but there's still some research and some study, future analysis that needs to happen to determine another location for it. The plat does show that there is a 0.12 acre right-of-way dedication for Kegley Lane, which currently does not meet our minimum right-of-way width of 50 feet for local streets. And Kegley Road is a collector, which, as I mentioned, separates both blocks of this proposed plat, and so it requires a sidewalk for collectors. It is also part of, that proposed sidewalk is part of the citywide Trails Master Plan, which requires a 6 to 8 foot wide trail along Kegley Road. And so a lot of times when that happens, the city participates in upsizing of the sidewalk for that upsizing. Water services are available through 6-inch water lines in Kegley Lane and the Kegley Road right-of-ways, as well as a 30-inch water line which runs along the railroad right-of-way to the south of this development. And sewer services for this development are available through 8-inch sanitary sewer lines which are in the Kegley Road right-of-way. Since this is a non-residential plat, park fees are not required for this development. And I have pictures of the plat on the screen, and basically it just shows the different lots. You have Kegley Road running through the middle of the development with the lot in Lot 1, Block 2 on the south border of that. And then I have the topo utility sheet, which basically just shows the information I just mentioned to you for water and sewer. I have a picture, it's an aerial showing a little more, a closer view of that proposed minor arterial. That is actually a proposed minor arterial for the extension of Poison Oak Road, which is off to the west of this property. And so I have on the screen, this is taken from our City of Temple website, showing Poison Oak Road in the upper corner, and that is shown in green. In the green dashed line is the proposed minor arterial extension, which runs through the property in question, the proposed plat. But in the recent subdivision that you see in the orange area just south of the label that says Poison Oak Road right-of-way, when that subdivision was platted, the developer actually dedicated the necessary right-of-way for Poison Oak Road for that development. So as you can see, the right-of-way development actually has already realigned the proposed extension whenever we do go to reestablish that Poison Oak extension. So as you can see, we've already established that the alignment would possibly go in a different area. And so staff is recommending approval of the final plat of Kegley Crossing Addition with the applicant's requested exception to the UDC. And at its July 18, 2016 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 7-0 to approve the applicant's requested plat as well as requested exception to the UDC per staff's recommendation. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Council, any questions?
If this is approved and then ultimately the road ends up needing to go through that property, what happens?
We would have to acquire it through
Like
right
just
away.
the regular Standard right away?
Right.
So this basically is just sort of keeping that plat a little cleaner for now, for the,
And with the
We're-
previous subdivision that went in, that it is anticipated that that alignment will change
We
anyway.
will realign that road.
That looks like a better alignment anyway,
Exactly.
following those
Because
other
we're
property
going to be
lines.
starting further north anyways. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Questions?
We're just not creating a problem down the road.
If there are no further questions on item 8, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve item 8 with the exception.
Second.
Second, Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Item 9, consider adopting a resolution pursuant to Chapter 2206 Government Code 2206.053, finding that 2 properties situated in original town of Temple and 2 properties situated in Roach's Addition, all of which are located along South 6th Street in Temple, Texas, 76501, are necessary for the construction of the proposed Santa Fe Market Trail MLK Fields Festival grounds and authorizing the use of eminent domain to condemn the properties. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. Council members. The item before you, item 9, as the mayor mentioned, is for Santa Fe Market Trail, the Martin Luther King's Festival grounds. I will run through, in this presentation, I will run through an overview of the project, identify the properties, the 4 properties mentioned in the agenda item as necessary for the completion of the project, run through each parcel and the city's request, the city staff's request to use eminent domain to acquire each of the properties and explain why it's necessary for each of them. And then a brief, quick overview of the condemnation process and how that will play out. So first off, just to start with a project overview, I'm sure you all are familiar with it, but the Santa Fe Market Trail, Martin Luther King Jr. Fields Festival Grounds project is actually 2 projects combined. The MLK Fields Festival Grounds is proposed event space, park space for community events such as Blooming Temple Festival and other events as needed. Connected with it, as part of this project, there's a Santa Fe Market Trail, which is pedestrian facilities, enhancement of road right-of-way and streetscapes along Avenue C connected to the planned Santa Fe Plaza and downtown Temple. As part of as what was necessary for the project, as part of the design, it encompasses close to 60 parcels in downtown Temple. The city has already acquired over the last few years 34 parcels within or adjacent to the project, and an additional 25 were identified as either necessary or alternate parcels, and legal was tasked with acquiring right-of-way for 20 of the priority acquisitions at this time, back in January. This here is a map of the downtown area. You can see the federal building up here in the top center of the map, and so we're talking about the area between Avenue B and the railroad tracks, and between Main Street and Martin Luther King Jr. Drive to the east. The area identified in red is the area that is currently under design as the Santa Fe Market Trail, and there is one priority parcel in that acquisition area, although there have been other market transactions that have been completed and council has approved over the last few months. The other properties identified were pursued by legal and right-of-way acquisition, and in February, Stateside Right-of-Way Services was hired to assist with the acquisition of the 20 priority parcels. For those parcels, appraisals were conducted by an independent appraiser. Just compensation was determined based on market value, and offers were presented to the property owners back in March and April of this year. Of the 20 properties, of the 20 initial offers, agreements have been reached for 12 and a half properties because one property was divided into two, and council has approved the acquisition of 11 and a half previously, and 2 additional properties after conversations with the property owner have been dropped from the scope, and the project is being designed around those properties. On the agenda before you today, there was an agenda item on consent for authorization to acquire the remaining 6.5 properties that are required for the completion of the project. And of the 6.5, 3.5 staff is asking for authorization in this agenda item to acquire via the use of eminent domain if necessary. So just going back to the prior graphic, the properties again are identified, and in blue here are the ones that are circled that have been previously approved by council for the acquisition, and the ones in orange and yellow were on today's agenda item and consent that you approve the acquisition of as well. The 2 in purple were identified as removed from the scope of the project and are being designed around. So I want to speak briefly about the necessity of the properties for the project. Under state law and the government code, there has to be a finding that the properties are necessary for a public purpose, and so I will speak to that at this time. I have identified on this map, I have colored in properties that the city has acquired over the last few months via market transactions or these offers in the right-of-way acquisition process. You can see on this map those are identified in like a gray shaded area. And you can see the near completion are many of the blocks necessary for the project. The remaining parcels that are before you today in this agenda item are circled in orange there, and they are identified as central parcels that are necessary for the completion of blocks so that the park design can be completed. It was unable to be designed around it. So I'll go through each property and identify them basically clearly. Since 2011, state law has required that we conduct this process in a public setting and council meeting and regular agenda, and specifically identify the properties. I'll mention it again at the end of the agenda item, but there is specific motion language as well that's required. So these are the 4 properties. The 3 normal-looking ovals, and then the little skinny one, which is the half of a property there. Running through each of them, starting with number 8 in the top left. This is parcel number 8, is owned by Moflo Company. It's at 212 South 6th Street. An offer was made initially in March of 2016, and despite multiple attempts by Stateside and the city, we were unable to meet with the property owner until earlier this month, when a counteroffer was received by a representative of the property owner that was significantly larger than the appraised value and more than we are authorized to accept under state law, and also much greater than the Belcad value. We proposed a settlement offer, and that was rejected, and so it is on the agenda before you today in case eminent domain is necessary. We are seeking the authority to proceed to those actions with the other 3 parcels. The other 3 parcels we have not received counteroffers from. This one is number 10. The offer was made in March as well. The property owner has been unwilling to meet with stateside or city staff, and no response has been received as of this week. Therefore, condemnation appears necessary in order to acquire the property and complete the block. There are 3 city liens on the property that would be addressed through the acquisition process. Just an overview, we went through 8 and 10 on the western 2, and then I will talk about the eastern 1.5 right now. So 15, this is the half parcel. It's 15B, we're referring to it as, at 219 South 6th Street. So parcel 15 was owned by the estate of J.W. Marshall. Half was sold at a tax sale earlier this year, and half is still retained in ownership by the estate or by the heirs of J.W. Marshall. The city staff and stateside right-of-way services have been unable to locate the heirs, despite several months of searching and due diligence. And at this point, it is recommended, due to the number of liens on the property, the pending tax suit, and the inability to locate the heirs, that we proceed to condemnation to acquire the property and complete the block. The next one is parcel number 16. This is at 307 South 6th Street. Again, it's in the center of the block, and the city has acquired the rest of the block. An offer was sent in March. We've been unable to locate the heirs who are the owners of record. We thought we had identified one in Austin, but knocking on the door, it turns out they no longer live there. And so at this point, we have received no responses to our offer or our follow-up attempts at communication, and condemnation appears necessary to acquire the property. There are 7 liens on the property that total more than the value, and so it likely would have had to have been handled through condemnation anyway, even if we had reached an agreement. So those are the 4 properties, and so agreement's uncertain at this time, or unlikely. We'll continue to search for the property owners and negotiate with those that we have identified. However, we are trying to meet a construction timetable in order to have the properties assembled and possibly the site ready for Blooming Temple next April. In order to meet that timetable, we would need to proceed to condemnation soon, because that is a lengthy process. So we're requesting the authority to use eminent domain if necessary in the weeks ahead. Final offers, just so you know the process, final offers between now and condemnation, final offers will be presented, and there will be 14 days to accept. So it's not the end of the negotiating process, and even then, as we're going through condemnation hearings, we'll continue to meet and negotiate with any property owners. The process can take up to 6 months for condemnation. And I just want to kind of briefly refresh you on this process for condemnation, because there are going to be other projects that might come up as well, and I wanted you to be familiar with it in my last presentation here. So the condemnation process, so after the final offer is either rejected or not responded to, the city would file a petition in county court at law. The judge appoints 3 special commissioners who are landowners in the county, and they hold a hearing to determine the value. If once the city appoints deposits that amount of the award that the commissioners determine in court, we can take possession And then at that point, if the landowner, the city, objects to the amount of the award, it'll proceed to a trial and by jury to determine just compensation. But at least by starting the process now, we would have possession of the property to move forward with the construction. So again, here's the overall map with the 4 properties identified, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the process or the properties in question. So, and I would remind you of the special motion language. Thanks.
Council, any questions? All right. If there are no questions on item 9, I will entertain a motion.
Bottle of water. I move that the City of Temple approve resolution number 2016-8257-R and authorize the use of the power of eminent domain to acquire the fee simple title to 2 properties situated in original town of Temple and 2 properties situated in Roach's Addition, all of which are located along 6th Street in Temple, Texas, for the construction of the proposed Santa Fe Market Trail / MLK Fields Festival Grounds. The descriptions of the 4 properties to be acquired are as follows, and the record vote shall apply to all units of property to be condemned. First, an unapproved lot measuring approximately .227 acre or about 9,900 square feet, legally described as lots 16 through 18, block 36, original town of Temple, in addition to the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, being the same land described as tract 16 in a deed dated October 31st, 2013, recorded as a document number 2013-00047516, official public records of real property of Bell County, Texas, and with an address of 212 South 6th Street, Temple, Texas. Second, an unapproved lot measuring approximately .076 acre, or about 3,300 square feet, legally described as Lot 15, Block 43, original town of Temple, in addition to the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, according to the plat record in volume 36, page 640, deed records of Bell County, and with an address of 310 South 6th Street, Temple, Texas. Third, an unimproved lot, legally described as Lot 10, Block 37, J.W. Roach Addition, in addition to the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, with an address of 219 South 6th Street, Temple, Texas, and being a portion of the land conveyed to J. Willis Marshall in a deed dated November 1st, 1920, and recorded in volume 323, page 617 of official records of real property, Bell County, Texas. And fourth, an unimproved lot measuring approximately .076 acre, or about 3,300 square feet, legally described as the south 2/3 of Lot 4 and the north 1/3 of Lot 5, Block 44, Roach's Addition, in addition to the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, with an address of 307 South 6th Street, Temple, Texas, and being the same land conveyed to Naomi Ruth Jefferson and Sarah Marie Peoples in a deed dated November 5th, 1994, and recorded in volume 323, page 685, official public records of real property, Bell County, Texas.
Second.
What is it that you're seconding? Can you read that again, please? We have a motion, a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington.
Aye.
Councilmember Morales.
Aye.
Mayor Dunn.
Aye. I knew you were going to do that. It's very sneaky. Leave it to the new guy to have to read that stuff. Item 10, we have had a request to table this, but I'll go ahead and read it. Consider adopting a resolution pursuant to Chapter 2206 Government Code 2206.053, finding that portions of 3 properties situated in the Baldwin-Robertson Survey, abstract number 17, and located along Prairie View Road, Temple, Texas 76502, are necessary for the expansion and realignment of Prairie View Road, and authorizing the use of eminent domain to condemn the properties. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. As you mentioned, staff is requesting that you table this item at this time as we have reached tentative agreements with the property owners. So.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to table item 10.
I'd be happy to move to table item 10.
Second. Motion is second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington.
Aye.
Councilmember Morales.
Aye.
Mayor Dunn.
Aye. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Our meeting is adjourned.